Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we are wrapping up our little mini series on ocean life by doing 6 different kinds of coral and seaweed. So I'm going to be showing 2 different types of seaweed. So for that I have 2 different greens here. I'll go into detail in each specific project in what I'm actually using. And for the coral, we're going to be using a whole bunch of different bright colored papers. I have some 1/8 inch and I am doing one project that needs a little bit wider paper, but you want those bright colors to kind of offset the ocean, the blues and things of the ocean. We're going to need a few different tools here, a needle tool, a slotted tool, and then I have a long slotted tool here because we're going to be making some cones. I have small scissors, tweezers, and a little paintbrush. For glues, we're going to be using white glue in my needle nose bottle, and then some tacky glue when we're putting some of these together. A little bit extra texture is needed, so I do have my crimper here, and I have another quilling comb, the Super Looper, and we're going to be building some of these to be 3D shapes, so you may need a cork board covered in some kind of nonstick paper and some pins. I'm going to start off with 2 different kinds of seaweed. The first one's going to be on the Super Looper here, which is a different type of quilling comb than I've shown in the past. It's nice because it has 2 different sets of teeth, so you can do multiple projects in different ways. And I like to always start off my quilling comb work with a needle tool. So I'm going to show that again if you've missed that in the past. For the paper here, I have Holiday Green from Craft Harbor paper. It is 1/8 inch wide. And like I said earlier, I start off on a quilling comb. I do a couple of rolls first on my needle tool to give it a little bit of an anchor. And I'm using the smaller teeth on this comb. You can use whatever comb you have. I decided to start sharing this one because I feel like not a lot of people have the onion holder type that I normally show. This one type seems to be a little bit easier to get. So starting off with the anchor on the bottom, I pull my strip up a few teeth, pull it through to the back, and continue in the same way. So every time I'm going up about 2 or 3 teeth. If you'd like to add glue to every spot, you can when it hits the bottom. You don't have to. I'm just doing a couple here just to kind of keep it in place. And make sure that your strip stays straight. It's not going crooked in any way. And then just going to keep adding a few more teeth every time until I get this seaweed to be about the height that I want it to be. You'll probably want to do a few of these in different heights. It's going to look a little bit more natural than having 1 or 2 that are exactly the same. And then once I get it to about where I like it, I'm going to tear off the excess and glue that tail down to the bottom to keep everything secure. Pull it off of my tool carefully, and you are looking at this shape right here, some nice long loops. But seaweed isn't going to be kind of loopy. It's going to be kind of straight and a little bowed. So I'm running it through my fingers to kind of squish those loops down. And also I'm going to make sure that I squish the little anchor I did too, because that's going to really make it nice and flat, like kind of like a blade of grass is what we're looking for. Squish that there. And then to give it a really nice arc, bending it around the handle of a tool. And like I said a second ago, here are some different shapes altogether. It definitely looks a little bit more realistic than just having 1 or 2 and having them arc in different directions. Some a little straighter than others. That is going to be one type of seaweed. Super fast, that part. Next, we are moving on to our second type of seaweed, and for this color I am using Sage Green from Quilled Creations. This is also 1/8 inch. I have a needle tool again. You can use a slotted tool for this if you'd like. Tweezers, white glue, and then this is one of those projects where we're going to be using our cork board and some tacky glue to put it all together. For this seaweed, we're using 3 strips in different lengths One a little smaller, one kind of medium, and this one here is on the longer side at about 7 inches. The size of these is up to you. It's going to depend on your canvas and how you're using these, but you just want them to be 3 different sizes. Rolling it up all the way, start to finish, taking off your tool, let it open up a bit, and use some white glue to glue that tail down. And then once that is set, we are just making some curved marquee. So we're going to give a good pinch to either side. That's going to give your marquee shape, and then twisting it over 2 different fingers at the same time, one on top, one on bottom, and you're going to get a nice little S shape. That is your curved marquee. And then it's just a matter of doing that to the other 2 coils that you made. And then we're going to be gluing them kind of end to end. So there's the smallest one right on top. So what you're going to be left with is the idea that these seaweeds, these ones are the kind of twisting kind, the ones that are sort of kind of waving in the water a little bit more than the last version. So to get these all together, I have a little bit of tacky glue here. Just going to apply a little bit right to the end. You don't really want a big glue blob between each one of these, but just a tiny bit here. You can use a tool, you can use a toothpick. If you're very gentle, you could dip. I don't trust myself. Oops. This is where tweezers are going to be helpful. If you need to pin these together to make sure they stay straight, go ahead and do that. And once it is dry, it is going to, let's pull this back a little bit easier to see on the paper here. This is what we're looking at here. And again, they're not all going to be the same size, right? Some are going to be taller, some are going to be smaller. So use different size coils. You can put 2 of them together like a little cluster, like so. Definitely another good texture. Thank you so much to Anna Maria for suggesting to add some seaweed. Like I told her, I had coral on the list, and adding some seaweed, super simple styles, but it's definitely going to make this whole seascape look much more realistic. So now we are moving on to 4 different kinds of coral. There's a lot of different kinds of coral out there, and your ocean is not going to just have one type. They're going to have a whole bunch of different kinds. So we are starting off here with a type of coral that is similar to the Staghorn Coral. So sort of looks like a tree without any leaves on it, but really, really bright colors. So I'm using Sunset Red from Craft Harbor paper, but on its own, it is not thick enough to stand up to what we need it to do. So we're going to be making a quadruple thick strip. So instead of just doing the double thick that I do quite often, we're going to be folding this to make it 4 times the thickness of itself on its own. So starting with this really long strip, fold it in half, add some glue, run it through my fingers all the way down. Make sure there's no air bubbles in there. And make sure it's not crooked in any way. And then once that's dry, going to fold it in half, again, the same strip, and do it again. So then it's going to be 4 times itself plus the glue, really nice and sturdy. This one's not dry yet, so I'm not going to actively do that to this strip, but hopefully you get the idea. It's the same thing twice. So here I have some strips that are dry. I have some tacky glue, and back to my workboard. You definitely need pins for this part, some scissors, some tweezers. We are going to be taking our super thick strips and kind of bending them in a bunch of different ways at a bunch of different spots. This is going to give this kind of little craggly, creakly look of this Staghorn Coral. It's all bent up, it's pointing out in a billion different directions. We're making a really simplified version of this, so it's just going to have sort of a center trunk. I don't know what you would call it in coral, but a center kind of stalk to it, and then a few pieces coming off the sides. So I have my long one, and then here's one that's going to kind of shoot off just like that. So I kind of like the look of that already. So let me get some glue here to get this all together. I've mentioned this before. Tacky glue is great for a lot of reasons, but if you do not buy the tacky glue where it's already coming from the bottom, it really is a pain. I'm trying to get through the bottles I have that I accidentally bought where the nozzle is on the top. I should just be storing them upside down, but for some reason they don't make that lid. It has like a nozzle on the top that doesn't let you store it upside down. So whenever I am sharing them, I share the ones to buy with the links to the kind you want to get where the nozzle is actively on the bottom. Just a little tangent there as we're putting these together. So here is another branch. These quadruple thick strips are kind of tricky to tear, so feel free to use some scissors when you have the length you like there. And just putting them, let's put another little guy on this side, a little dip, a little glue. There you go. If you need pins to keep them straight up and down like I have in the center there, if you need to brush away some glue, make sure you have a brush handy. But here, just to save some time, is an example of a finished coral of this type. So I put some different little branches on the other side, all going in different directions. That's it for that one. Next, we have two different colors here in two different widths. I have Quilled Creations Deep Yellow in 1/8 inch wide, and I have Watermelon from the same company in 3/8 inch. I have a slotted tool. I have some white glue and my scissors. We're going to be making a type of coral called sun coral, where it has sort of a base of one color and then these bright little fringe at the top coming out like sort of sun rays. I have about 8 or 9 inches of the yellow here. I'm rolling it up on my tool. You can use a slotted needle tool for this if that is more comfortable for this project. That's fine. Keep it on the tool and get it sealed up. And then we're just going to indent this just a little bit. We don't need it to be a cone. We're just going to kind of push in the center just a tad to get it in a sort of a 3D shape here, but nothing too exaggerated. That's totally fine for this. Add some glue just to keep that shape. And then if you have your paintbrush still handy, you can brush that glue out a little bit. We just want to get it on all the layers so we keep that little bowl shape. Next thing we're going to do is make our fringe. If you've been watching my channel for a while and you've seen any other fringe videos, you know that I prefer to hand cut them. And in this project, you really want super duper fine fringe. So the fringe machine's not really going to cut it. No pun intended. This is just the best way for me. Do what you need to do, but you really want it to be super duper fine, almost like hair-like, very, very thin. You don't need a lot of fringe for these. These are kind of small, maybe about 1.5 inches or so. If you make them bigger, you adjust accordingly. I'm just cutting my fringe until I get about the length I want, and then I'm going to put the two pieces together. So here I have my fringe strip torn off of the rest of the long one, and I'm going to just let's put the glue on the fringe. We're going to start with a little bit on the edge here. Just a tad right at the edge of the non-fringed side, and just apply it right to the top of our little dome there. I just want this first part to get set up first, and then once that's dry, I am going to add more glue and then sort of roll the little baby all the way up. Be careful with your fringe. If you do tear it, Just glue it back on. Nobody's going to notice. Let's get that end down a little bit. And that is the basic idea of this type of coral. But I found that this fringe is just a little bit too long. It's just a little bit too overwhelming. So I am going to give it a tiny little haircut. Just a little bit off the ends there. And just keep going all the way around. This is very satisfying. And there we go. Get all that out of the way. You're going to need a few of these and maybe a few different clusters. So each one cluster may have 3 or 4. There we go. And then you might need a few of these for your seascape. They add a really nice texture. There's that word again. They add a nice 3D quality, and the color is just super vibrant. This watermelon paper is really, really pretty in person. So to put them together, I'm kind of turning them to the side and adding some tacky glue to the base, and then sort of stacking them almost like a little pyramid, but looking in different directions. So here's one on top, going that way. That's pretty much it. That's all you're looking for the sun coral. Here's one with 4. Here's another one with 3. But that is it for that. So let's move on to the next. We got a lot to cover. So now we are making coral that is going to be 2 different colors of orange. Quilled Creations orange there, and a slightly lighter color called Blush. I have here a long slotted tool. This is going to be used to make cones. I've shown in the past that you don't need this tool, but we're going to be using it today. And this is going to be a type of coral that is called tube coral or sponge coral, tube sponge. I've also seen in my little research. So as the name implies, they're going to look like tubes when they're done. And just to add a little bit more interest, I'm using these 2 different colors of orange. So I'm gluing them end to end. I have about a 4-inch strip of the orange paper, about 3 inches of the blush in the middle, and then another almost 3 inches or so of the orange on the other side. Just a dab of glue in between and glue them end to end to make one long strip. I'm going to take my slotted tool and put one side in. It's up to you which side you want. Just the very end in. Give it a turn, and then you want to make sure that your tail is starting to go slightly at an angle. And what that's going to do is have this strip that's not overlapping completely straight. It's going sort of crooked. It's going to make it so that you end up with a cone. It's going to make it longer, and it's going to make it a little bit wider. I find that sort of guarding it with my thumb and my finger there like I'm doing, and just running the paper through that is a nice way to keep the cone in place. As long as you're on a slight angle, you're going to get this cone shape, and it goes right up the rod of the tool. You could also do it in the other direction where it's going off the rod. I find this is a little bit more stable. I apply some glue to the end, run it through my fingers to make sure that that's set. And I also like to just apply a small line of glue down one side and either brush it or roll it on through, and that's going to really keep that cone shape for you. So that when it's dry, jump the gun a little bit here, you can wiggle your tool out of the bottom and you will have a cone. They look like little mini traffic cones, I think, which is kind of cute. And for each of these clusters of coral, you're going to need a number of these little cones, and you might want to make them in slightly different sizes just to make it look a little bit more realistic, give some variation. And we just have to put them together. And that's just a matter of a little bit of tacky glue on the sides and varying the height a little bit. having them stick to your fingers maybe. Here we go. Just like so. And then to really give that 3D look, you're going to want to glue some in front as well. So there's a second layer on that one that's already done. Again, varying heights. But this will really make your little ocean scape kind of pop with the color and the height. Good stuff. Now this is our fourth and final coral type, a little bit more complicated than the rest. I have two different colors of purple there. I have a slotted tool, which you definitely need for this project, some Elmer's glue, scissors. I have my crimper here, and then the board and the pins. So to start with, we're going to be making some beehive quilling. So that is just putting in your slotted tool, giving a couple turns in the same direction, and taking your tool out. There we go. So it should look like a bunch of little S's next to each other. For some reason I decided to roll this the other way. Not a big deal. That's what it's going to look like if you mess up like I just did. But we're going to leave it in because it really will not matter for this project. We're going to keep rolling and keep rolling. The amount of this is up to you. I would like about 3 or 4 inches of this section of the beehive. We're going to be using this to make a kind of coral called brain coral, which again, as the name would imply, it kind of is really, really wavy and crimpy and going in all a bunch of different directions. That's what we're going to be making with this technique here. So once you get a good amount of the beehive done, you can go ahead and snip that off. It's okay if it's all curled up in different directions. It's just going to naturally do that. And then we're going to grab our work board and sort of get this to be a little bit more organized here by rolling it around itself to make the attempt at a circle that it's going to let you make. It's not going to be perfect. You don't want it to be perfect. You just kind of want it to get it a little bit more organized, like I said. So we're going to, when my glue bottle decides to cooperate, there we go. Going to squeeze the nozzle in here and just add a little bit of glue where the beehive rolls are touching each other. Moving in a little bit here, you can see better. Just wrapping it around itself. I'm not looking for perfection. Notice I have a pin there right in the middle to keep that center from moving around on the board while I'm trying to get this the way I want it. And then just very slowly, very carefully, if it gets caught on the pins, just be aware that can happen. Just be gentle. It's okay if some of the rolls start to kind of misalign a little bit. You're not going to notice that when it's all together because it's just going to look like a big a disc of waviness. That's what you're looking for. So don't worry about perfection here. Just worry about kind of getting this in the general shape of a flat disc. Just keep going around and around, adding pins where you feel like you may need to if it's going to start coming apart a little bit. And then once you get to the end, you'll glue the end in place to get that to stay. A pin right there. Keep that guy there. Just have that little end there to do. That's that. And you can also use pins if you feel like it's looking a little squarish, just to keep that in shape, just till it gets to the shape that you like. And then I like to just use a tool, just make sure everything's drying flat. That's all we want for that part. And then I like to add another texture to the outside. So we're going to crimp a darker purple. I will link the machine here that I'm using in the description with all the rest of the tools and supplies. I did use an entire strip of the purple there, which is going to be too much, but it's might as well just run an entire thing in instead of trying to worry exactly how much you need. So my glue is dry there. I took most of the pins out, just leaving a couple to keep it steady. And then it's just wrapping this crimped paper around the outside of the beehive paper. So just start off in one spot, add pins if you need, and keep going around. I ended up doing 2 layers of this. So when I got to the beginning, I just kept going just to make sure that the strip is as thick as I want it to be. I just want it to stand out a little bit, give a little bit more of a color variation, a little bit more of a texture variation, a little bit more of a defining space, and keep all the beehive together. So it does a lot of different jobs, this little tiny strip of purple. And you can see as I'm pulling it together, it's really keeping that shape even more of sort of an oval, which is great. So here we go, just keep going around the end. When I get to the end of the second lap, I'm just going to cut off the excess and make sure that it's all glued in place. For this type of coral as well, you may want to do more than just the one. I like the look of 2 different sizes or even 3 different sizes of the same technique, and then kind of stacking them off center from each other. So I have here kind of the same size of the purple, but then one that's a little bit smaller, and just kind of giving it that look. I also like the look of green here. I'll mention the purples are from Craft Harbor's spring mix, and then this is a what is this green called? A lime green from Quilled Creations with a little bit of my favorite green, I can't think of the color, leaf green from Craft Harbor. So just to mention all the colors, like I said, I will link all of that in the description box for this video. There's going to be a whole heck of a lot of links down there this week because we covered a lot of ground. So now, just to finish out the video, I am very quickly putting together everything that we made today. I know you will take much more time and much more care in planning your oceanscape with all these different corals and seaweed, or, you know, choose your own favorite. You don't have to use all of them. You know, bear in mind there is a lot of different types of life down there in the bottom of the ocean. So to have all the different types together, we'll make it a little bit more realistic, but you don't need to use them all. You can definitely have some sand down there, some rocks, whatever you think. I'm just trying to show how it all could come together. I also have some little crabs that I made in a video really long time ago. I will add a link to that. I have my little seahorse up there, which is made from a template that I shared in a video, but I just shrunk it down and made a smaller version. And then we have our little starfish. I know they don't hover above the floor of the sea, but for the sake of space, that's where they are for this part. But like I said earlier, this is going to be sort of a choose your own adventure kind of week. We have covered a lot of ground. You don't have to use all of these components in your project. You can just take what you like from this video. I will say, though, we are going to take a little break from the under the sea adventures that we've been having for the last few weeks and switch it up a little bit. I do have some more ideas coming, but for now, we're just going to change pace a little bit just to mix it up. I will leave links to all the tools and supplies, as well as the other quilling projects I showed in the video. As always, any questions, leave those in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be around for my next video. Check out the link to my Buy Me a Coffee page if you'd like to give me a little extra support that way. I do have some freebies there. And in the meantime, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.